Welcome back to Tactical and Practical. This one's going to be a good one. One of my most popular episodes to date is about how to increase AOV. And I briefly touched on price testing, pre and post purchase upsells and bundles, and creating new and more expensive products. And we're going to hone in on that last one today because I've brought a special guest who's nearly doubled his AOV in the last 5 years. And new product development has been a huge part of that. He and his brother founded Original Grain 12 years ago. He's planted 700,000 trees, donated to organizations that have helped hundreds of veterans and their families. He is the best boss I've ever had by a mile. Original Grain co-founder and CEO, Ryan Beltran. What's up, man? How are you?
Hey, what's going on, Nate? Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Dude, good to finally have you here. We talk about OG a lot on the pod, obviously, and it's about time we brought the man who created it.
Heck yeah, I know we were on that 8-hour drive from Greenville up to Nashville. We're like, hey, I should get you on the pod, and I'm like, heck yeah, let's do
Yeah,
it.
this is actually the first time we've talked since I sent you a Slack yesterday about a big milestone we just hit. We don't have to flex the details here, but that's a big one, man. How do you feel?
I'm feeling good, and yeah, I mean the fact that it's only lifetime, but we just crossed 9 figures is exciting, and yeah, I appreciate you calling that out. I didn't know you were going to, so it's a fun one, and everything's relative, right? Because like some companies, I think you've even had on the pod probably do that in Q3 or Q4, but
Yeah,
it's still a milestone. It's something we're proud of for sure. It's been a lot of work to get there,
for
so we're
sure.
excited.
Yeah, and I think the next 100 is going to come a lot faster, so it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like, we can do the next 100 in like 3 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
All right, before we get into the episode, I got to shout out our sponsors, and I want to get you involved in the ad read if that's okay, because the people have heard me talk enough about IntelliGems and PostScript and how they've helped us grow our top and bottom line in the last couple of years. But I want them to hear it from you as my boss and the owner of the company I work for. Do you solemnly swear that we are making more money because of IntelliGems and PostScript and the work we're doing in there?
yes, 100%. I was actually hoping you were going to bring them up. I mean, I figured the topic around AOV, we would intelligence would weave its way into the conversation. But yes, hands down, I think you and I said like it's one of the highest ROI softwares that we've ever implemented, and we use it. You use it daily. I mean, it
Yeah.
feels like
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
So there you have it, folks. It's real. I'm not just shilling some software for a check. It's actually helping us grow our top and bottom line. So go to intelligence.io and postscript.io to start making more money today. All right, let's talk about our AOV because I think it is an underrated and under-discussed topic in ecom. And I really think it's one of the main reasons we've been able to grow at the rate we're growing last couple of years. But I've got some trivia for you first. Without checking, do you know what our AOV was in 2018? Take a
I'm gonna
guess.
go. I'm gonna go like 212.
179.
Oh, wow. Under
179.
200.
Yeah. Do you know what it is this year?
I think I know. Is it like what is it? 305?
307. 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's close.
307 this year. The last 2 months is like 330, by the way.
Yeah. It's been juicy lately. Don't know
But
what you're doing in there, but it's working.
well, we're gonna get into it here. The biggest jumps in AOV have happened in the last couple of years, and it all started actually because you wanted to decrease the price of our two most popular watches, the whiskey espresso barrels. Do you remember how much I hated that decision?
Yes. Yes. When we tested it originally, right? Like you tested it right away. You're like, all right, let's give it a go.
Yeah, this was early on when we signed up with IntelliGems. You had a
Yep.
feeling that two of our most popular watches, which at the time I think our AUR on them was like 270.
Right.
You were like, I think if we can get them to 199, like they're just gonna run and fly. I was super scared to do it because as we were scaling acquisition really fast, our CAC had gotten bigger. And I was
Right.
like, we're gonna need our CAC to decrease a lot. We like to be profitable on acquisition. and we tested it. And for the first quarter, the higher price won. And I was like,
Right.
great, told you so.
Yep.
Suck it, boss. Leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. But then we tested it the next quarter and the next quarter and the next quarter and the next year. And the lower price of $199 has won out time and time again. Tell me why kind of your head kind of went there to start. And then I'll come back in on why it worked, even though our CAC hasn't gone down since then.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of we had more than just barrels, right? We had just, I think, launched rugged autos, or we were getting ready to launch those, which sit at 350,
This was
right?
a year before.
Was it?
It was a
So
full year.
I can't cover it up with that. I think it was a bit of, well, yes, gut. Like you know me, Nate. I'm a big gut guy. Like I'll just call you randomly, like, Nate, I got something. You're like, what is it? And I'll tell you, and like, where's the data? I'm like, there's no data. It's just gut. And you're like, okay, well, I'll make it work for you then. And this felt like one of those times where it was like, I just felt somewhere that if we could get an entry level, quote unquote, price point of like 199. And I do think there's a big thing around that psychological price threshold of like getting under. Every product category is different, right? Like for us, I felt like strongly that if we could get under $200, at least, with taxes and everything, it's a little more, but right, like 199 out the door, for one of our all-time best-selling watches, like that would just help with like some of those quicker orders, like impulse buys, if you will, especially around Father's Day and Christmas, which I think is when maybe that proved to work best. I think the original test might have been in like Q3 of that year.
Correct.
And it was like, softer selling season. It was like, didn't really make a huge difference. So yeah, I think it was just a combination of just like, how do we get people to buy a little quicker in that sales cycle? And then figure out ways like we have to sell more expensive items to help kind of bring up the average to not 200, or 179 or whatever it was. Geez, it's scary.
So a lot of that year, immediately I panicked because I was like, all right, I know the intelligence test says this is making us more money, but I don't know if the business survives at scale with a $200 AOV.
Right.
So a ton of that year was spent testing bundles and upsells. And the other thing is, a lot of the other watches we price tested, the higher price did win. So that kind of balanced it out as well. So it was an interesting kind of first 3 quarters of last year with all that going on. And then if you remember, the idea for the rugged autos and the barrel autos, that was part of a compromise we made when you convinced me to test lower prices. I was like, all right, well, you got to go design some watches at a higher price point and try to get them to, be new top dogs.
New top dogs, yep.
So a year ago, we launched 3 versions of new automatic watches. A lot of what we were selling before was mainly quartz. So we went with upgraded movements in these. I think the cheapest ones are the ruggeds at $349. So a big jump from that $199 price point. We launched the barrel 42s, 46s, and the rugged autos. 42s kind of flopped. 46s did pretty good and are doing pretty good.
Decent,
but the rugged auto has absolutely crushed. And this year we have sold more of that watch, like not just more revenue, more units of that watch than the previous top dogs, even though they're $150 cheaper.
Yep.
Talk to me about the mindset of like going into a product development meeting, or brainstorming session, whatever, with kind of a target AOV in mind, with the idea of like, hey, we have to go build something that is more valuable than our existing hero products.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. And I do think this is where like being around for this long has helped in terms of like product development and seeing what has worked and honestly what hasn't. Like we've launched a lot of watches, like even like, pre, I think you starting, that just didn't work. And so when it came time to design that rugged auto, and I don't know if I can peg it to just that, but I think it has something to do with it in terms of just design purely. We're like, I think this is something our customers are going to like. And another thing we've talked about, I've got a lot of thoughts here, Nate, but because I want to go back to the whole, like, how do you build product to hit a certain price point? Because that's critical. I mean, the margin structure, we always like to have 80 points, right? That's like a pure product margin. It's like, and you know that, Nate, it's like, and then I'll work with you to kind of say, okay, where do we think we can sell this? All right, well, now let's build into that from a COGS perspective and get it there. And then we got to work with our suppliers. I mean, that's another thing that I kind of glossed over, didn't touch on with the 199 barrels, is in order to do
we worked
that,
them down, right?
we had to work them down, right? And we had to, like, cost engineer some things, but still maintain quality. And, as you grow, and I think people that have been on your pod probably know this at their scale, and you can start to work with your suppliers, right? You say, hey, I'm placing this many unit, POs, work with me here. Like, if you can shave 10% off your cost, that's huge. And so that's kind of what we were able to do with the barrels, which was a big part of why we could sell them for 199. I wasn't going to just sell them for 199 if we couldn't maintain 80% margin. There's no way.
Well, and like I think a key component to that, and like a lot of people were like me, scared of testing lower prices because the fear is like, well, what if they win? Like, then what?
Yeah, right.
And for us, it's like, well, we dropped the price, which means we're selling them so much faster, so we're selling so much more. So the POs we're placing with our suppliers are so much bigger now. You start to run into some bulk discounts there. Yep. And like, I think that better than me, obviously, but I think that's been a big part of it. Is like the POs we're placing today are so much bigger than what we were placing 2 years ago, and getting a couple dollars to break on COGS is a big deal.
Yeah, it's huge. And like, we talk about this a lot, Nate. Like, it gets, I don't want to say it gets easier because there's different new set of but it kind of feels like things get easier as you grow. Like because of the, and we're starting to like factor, obviously in our category with watches, it's a little harder, but like, our LTV on repeat and stuff like that. And you're always telling me like, look, Ryan, like the more customers we can acquire, like, let's just count on like 20-25% of that coming back, right? That's the math you usually run, right?
20, yeah.
About 20%. And so that math gets a lot more fun when you're driving more volume, right? It's not very fun it's cool, when you're 5 or 10 or 15 in top line, like, but as you get into that $20-25 million in top line or more, it just gets a lot more fun with the kind of what that means to the business long term. But like, back to the rugged auto thing. So when I went into those meetings, it was like, what do we think they want, in terms of like this higher price point? We already had a very and this is kind of watch talk, but right, we had a simple 3-hand quartz, right, with our barrels with a little date function. It's like very entry level, right, like on purpose. Then we had our chrono, right, at 250, quartz again, right, but it's a good movement, a good watch at 249. That's another great value. That watch I think was at like what, 300,
I think 329 for a 329.
Yeah. So we did the same thing there. And then I think originally like, well, if we have something at 199, we have something at 249, what's that next step up? And I think we just went straight to 350 because you're getting so much more with an automatic. And then what I think the big success with the rugged was just the fact that we were showing the movement and how it works. And for our customer, that's huge. Now it's something they can talk to their friends about, go to the poker night and be like, yo, check out my watch. You can see the movement. They're not going to be your, higher end watch guys necessarily. And that's okay. And I think that's one of the big wins we've had with that watch.
Yeah. Well, and like, that's what's so interesting about the watch industry. We obviously have the luxury of like the price elasticity of watches is infinite. Like, you can go buy a watch for $40 or you can go buy a watch for $300,000.
Right.
So like, we kind of have a lot of room to grow there, but we've talked about other brands a lot that don't have that in their industry. And, brands that AOV might fall between 50 and $100. Do you think there's still opportunity for brands like that to, try to increase their, AOV 10-20% by building something that's just like a little bit higher end, a little bit more luxurious, durable, sustainable, whatever it is, just a little bit better?
That's interesting. I feel like you hit the nail on the head. Like the elasticity of watches is a beautiful thing that I sometimes forget about, right? Like Nate's been bugging me, like saying, hey, look, let's sell some $1,000+ watches, right? Yep. And I think that is something we will do. And I think we can get get away with it. I think that's a kind of a shitty way of positioning that. But because we'll build it the right way. We'll use something that really rare from a material perspective. We'll use a really nice movement. Maybe we'll go Swiss or American automatic. We'll build the right product that warrants that price point. But if we were in a different category, we couldn't just say, hey, we're gonna 3x our
Right.
AOV and like slang this product. It just does. I don't know if you can do it. Like,
No.
I feel like the bundling strategy is what works for most, which is something we've been trying lately. And I was kind of like bearish on that. I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna be able to bundle, guys. And you guys are making it work.
Yeah, bundles are working for us, and I do think that's an opportunity, especially for brands that can't just slap some gold on something and call it, you know,
Right.
$100 more expensive. I think like a big way to increase AOV for, you know, brands that are like sub 100 in AOV is actually developing cheaper products than your hero SKU, but then bundling them with the hero SKU. So
Yep.
like add one or two things to it, add $20, $25 more to the price on it. If your AOV is $70, it's like a 30% increase in AOV. Like that's a really big deal. And then that extra kind of breathing room you have on your CAC means you can scale acquisition so much faster.
Yep. That's exactly what we've done with us. I was gonna say the same thing. Yeah. How do you find you can't just like update that product and sell a more expensive version. I mean, you can do that with like some LTO, like limited time offer stuff,
Mm,
right? And that's something you've been pushing me on too, Nate. Like Nate, lately, Nate is like, in October and in May,
yeah.
let's launch new watches that yes increase AOV, but also just allow us to kind of like scale acquisition at maybe a little less efficiency than we like to fill the funnel, and the whole thing works together
Yeah.
for sure. So,
Now, something that I always tell brands who I'm talking to is like, if you're selling on Shopify, you're not competing purely on price. Like, no one on Shopify is selling the cheapest thing in their industry. If you were, you'd be in Walmart and Amazon, and that's it. So then I always ask the question, like, well, if you're not competing on price, then why are you trying to compete on price?
right.
And like, I think we've seen drastic changes to our business, and like, yes, finding the barrels at the, you know, right price point as
Sweet
determined by
spot.
the market.
Right.
But again, I mean, that $350 watch, that is our best seller this year by far, by units and by revenue. Like, I mean, changed the business. And it was just on a mission of like, let's create something that's, you know, for us, you know, whatever, 30% more expensive.
Yeah, and when we launch those automatics, this is another thing I think you mentioned, Nate, is we just had a couple at bats with it too. Like
Yep.
not everything succeeded. Like you said, the 42 flop, 46 okay, mechanical chrono, right?
Yeah.
Flop.
Yep.
Like we went 50% on that at best. It was probably closer to like 25%
Yep.
really in terms of like finding a new hero SKU.
Yep.
And really it's one
It's
SKU.
really
There's
just one. It's one
it's
out of
like
those
one.
16 we launched.
Yeah. And
That,
so I think it's
yeah.
a good reminder for people too to just you gotta you gotta launch things and you gotta know that not everything's gonna be a winner. But it doesn't take a lot to find something that changes the business, yes. And then also like lean into that, right? And just be
Mhm.
like, hey, like let's like next year, I know we already have a number on the board for that watch and it's big.
Yep.
But we're like, we believe in it. And we're like, this can be, and that's not out of the norm for I think most brands in ecom, whether you're doing 5 million or 50 million or 100, I'd be willing to bet that it's 80/20 rule
Yeah.
applies.
Yeah,
So
100%. And what I like a lot about the product roadmap for next year is like, we're clearly learning from this. Like
right.
the vintage auto that's on the board, I think learns from what the rugged auto has done and be like, all right, cool. Let's see if we can get another thing like that. Probably going to be priced similarly, if not a little bit higher. And then I know some of the collabs we have coming up. We're gonna lean into some automatic and mechanical movements there as well. So yeah, it's exciting to just build cooler shit.
Yeah,
Like I think
it
that's
is.
kind of what we do at the end of the day, and like we rationalize it with metrics that improve the business, but we're just kind of like, let's just build cooler shit that we're proud of.
Yeah. Yep. Cooler watches. I'm glad you brought up the vintage auto that we're calling it, at least internally for now.
For now, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I like it, but AJB's in name for it. No, it's cool. I think it'll be another opportunity. But again, we're going in with that same mindset of, okay, what does it cost, and then what can we sell it for? Shout out again to Intelligence, because we can actually test that and prove that it makes money on a profit. Was it profit per session, right? Like, and revenue per session, and find the sweet spot of where we move enough units at the right conversion rate to make the most money. And that's a beautiful thing I feel like I'm like, you're like, what do you want to price it at? And that's another actually thing can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
A tip, Nate, that you could probably share is just how you think about, now I'm interviewing you, how you think about like price testing, because a lot of times I just give you like a floor, and like, I'll just give you the floor, right? And then you kind of work around that.
Yeah, so kind of our standard practice on new product launches now is you'll give me a floor of like what you really don't want to sell it for cheaper than. So I'll start the test there, and then I'll usually go increments of like $20 to $50, depending on what makes sense for the watch. Like if something starts at 500, I'll probably test 500, 550, 600. Something starts cheaper at like 200, I'll probably go like 199, 219, 249. But that first kind of price test for us is always just kind of like directionally accurate. It's just kind of like to get a sense, is it higher, lower, where does it fall? And then let's say that 219 price point will win. We'll go in and test 209, 219, 229. And then lately I've even been going things like 224, 227, 229. To like really just hone in on like, hey, what's going to be, the sweet spot of conversion rate and margin to get us the most profit per session. And then what's happened a couple times is that lower price continues to win and win and win. And then I come back to you and say like, hey, can I go below this floor a little bit? Because the data is telling us that it gets more profitable the lower we price it at.
Yeah, I think seasonality is a big part of that too. We've talked a lot about just, how the data can kind of flip, or the price points can change based on the buyer behavior that's happening in the macro environment. So, but no, yeah, it's cool. I think with Rugged Auto, same thing. We like worked our way to that 349 price point. It was like,
I think it started at 399 actually.
Yeah.
And then like I think we tested it up to 449 and down to 349. And 349 this year has won. To be honest, a lot of lower prices this year have won. I think that's a testament to how bad the dollar is these days, and how bad inflation is. We'll see if that improves the next 4 years or not. But one thing's for sure, we're going to keep testing all this and keep designing products that are super dope.
Cool.
Well, dude, thanks so much for having coming on. Appreciate it. Long time coming. You're like kind of soft launching your personal brand right now. Is that true?
This should be the catalyst for making it official.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. So where can people follow you, reach out to you, Twitter, LinkedIn?
Yeah, I'm still deciding, to be honest, like which channel. So it's one of those things. I'm like, do I join the Twitter gods up there with you guys, or do I to go a different route? Do I go rogue and figure out something? Maybe I'll go TikTok. No, I don't know if I could go that route, but yeah.
Well, dude, thanks so much for coming on. Life is good when me and you are podcasting in Q4. So
yes, that's a great sign.
Happy to have a stress-free November so far, but thanks so much for coming, man.
Cool. Thanks, Nate. Appreciate it.